All right, Hare Krishna, you want to know how I ended up in South Africa in 1972? Well, originally Rishi Kumar Swami had asked Prabhupada about South Africa, and Prabhupada says, yes, you can go and you take Kshudi Das Brahmachari with you. And when he told me, I said, well, why me? And then I thought, well, why not me? Someone has to go to open the temple there. And we were in Mumbai, which was called Bombay at the time. But before coming to South Africa, we took the train to Sri Mayapur, and I have Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada behind me because something interesting happened at that festival. At that festival, Prabhupada brought all of his godbrothers together, and he made a brilliant proposal to them. He said, now that we're together, all the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta, we'll stay together. And instead of working as small splinter movements, we'll work as one individual movement. And we'll do like our spiritual master wanted. We'll form a governing body, and from that day forward, we will preach as one movement. And they all went Jai, but they never actually followed through. But we laid the cornerstone for the big Mayapur project, which is coming up, our major project, Temple of the Vedic Planetarium. So when it was time to go to Africa, I went into Prabhupada's room. Of course, the room was just this one little shack there. When I got to Mayapur, I saw that there was a shack. I said, yes, Jai Pataka Swami's in their shack. And I said, can I come and stay here with you? He says, oh, yes, you're most welcome to stay with us in the building. I said, where's the building? He says, this shack is the building. There isn't any other building. So these things were all of them in the pioneering stage. So I went into Srila Prabhupada's room and I said, Prabhupada, I'm going to Africa now, and I hope this gives me an opportunity to increase my service to you. And Prabhupada put his hands behind his head and simply said, service to Lord Chaitanya, service to Lord Chaitanya, service to Lord Chaitanya. So I was off with Rishi Kumar Swami to Africa, and we had letters to meet certain people. And on the plane, one man saw me chanting the pictures and said, where did you get those pictures of Krishna? And I said, I'm on my way to South Africa to open a temple, and I have letters asking certain people to help us. See if you know any of these people. He looks through them. He says, this is my father-in-law, Mr. T.P. Devshi. And then he said, the next one was me. He says, this one is me. And he became a life member the next day. So we went to Durban. We were giving lectures, and we had some difficulties there. In Johannesburg, at Junibai Patel's house, 5 thieves came, 4 with guns and 1 with a crowbar to pry things open. And they stuck the gun at my head and said, get under the bed. So I got under the bed chanting on my beads. And the one with the crowbar said, shoot him. And the one with the gun said, no, we don't need to shoot him. And I'm thinking, even if he's not a good aim, the gun is at my head. I could feel the metal against my head. So I chanted very attentive rounds because I was going to make the last one count. Because it looked like this. I said, Krishna, this is it, isn't it? Please be ready for me because it looks like I'm coming to you soon. And so somehow they asked the owner of the apartment, where's the key to the safe? She says, it's in the office in the other room. And when they went out, she locked the door behind them and screamed in the street, chor, 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 thieves, thieves, thieves. And so they tried to get out, and one of them got stuck. And so when the police came, but we weren't there. We went to another apartment because it was not legal for us to stay in an Indian area. So it was already a challenge. So then we went to Durban very soon, and we started giving lectures there. And the other challenges we had, he came back to Johannesburg to renew my visa. Back then they'd give you a visa good for a year, but every 4 months you had to renew the residence permit. So when I went to Johannesburg at the John Vorster Square, these 4 tall men took us upstairs. And my mother was there. I told her, go out to the street and just keep waving. Don't stop no matter what. And so when they took us up there, they told me, well, you think you can fly, don't you? If we throw you out the window, you'll be able to fly. So I go to the window, I'm waving. They said, why are you waving? I said, my mother's an attorney from Los Angeles and she's down below. It might be a bad political move to throw me out the window with her watching. So this is the kind of treatment they gave. All we were doing was preaching about Krishna. So then, of course, I woke up one day and Rishi Kumar Swami was gone. And there was a note that said, Dear Kshudi decided to split. So I turned the page over. I looked for the other page. There was no other page. So I thought, now, all of a sudden, I'm in charge to spread Krishna consciousness in this country where I don't know who's going to kill me first, the natives or the government. And I have to make sure we have a $15,000 book debt. I have to make sure, so if something happens to me, that the books are intact and the books are paid for, and I made some contacts. So I wrote to Prabhupada how I was working on making contacts, and I was selling books to pay the debt off, and I would order more Gitas to tell people they can't have the Gita unless they buy the whole set of books, because everyone wanted the Gita. And I'd make incense sticks to put in stores and sell at programs to help with the debt, because my major goals were to make sure that if I get in trouble here, the books are paid for and someone else can come. So I thought maybe I was in trouble for all the decisions I'd made. And a letter came back from Prabhupada very quickly. I found out later why it came back so quickly. Shyama Sundar said he used to open up all the letters, and he said when he opened mine, he went right away to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, a letter's come from Kshudi Das in South Africa, and he said that Rishi Kumar left him with no explanation and took all the money they'd collected with him. He said Prabhupada's eyes got really big, and he said, we'll immediately dictate a letter, you immediately type it, and you immediately take it to the post office, so he gets the information as soon as possible. So I typed the letters. Back then we used carbon paper, and I used the aerograms, and I typed a copy to Karundar in Los Angeles and to Brahmananda in Nairobi. But the answer came back from Prabhupada quickly. So I wondered if I was in trouble for making all these decisions. But there was no one to ask. In fact, we were 10 kilometers from any neighbors. I not only had no devotees, but no neighbors to ask. So I had to come up with some kind of plan and just do it. So I opened the letter, and the first line said, I'm very much pleased at the responsibility you've taken to spread Krishna consciousness in South Africa at such a young age. He said, Rishi Kumar was tempted by Maya, and he fell. He said, now somehow or other you've been left all alone, just like our Narada Muni, and he became the greatest devotee. That's why I got the nickname All Alone, because I was left all alone. And so Prabhupada wrote that I'm praying to Krishna that you have the strength and enthusiasm to carry out this mission. He says, chant your 16 rounds and follow the 4 regulative principles. This will keep your consciousness pure and eager to engage in devotional service. So I was there alone trying to sell books and hide all at the same time. But I came up with a plan. I had, I would show part of the books. I'd tell people I'm here to open the temple, and they'd look up the street. I said, what are you looking for? They said, your parents. Aren't they here? I said, no. They said, they're coming to get you, aren't they? Because I looked so young, they wondered what this child was doing at their door. So I said, no, my parents are in America. But I would show the certain set that was worth $37.50. And then the whole set was like $50. Yes, the whole set was like $50. So I'd say, do you want the $50 set, or would you rather start with the $37.50? And then I'd just look at them. So that way, even if I sold a few of each, I'd made a good amount of money. If I sold like 4 of the $37.50, that's 150, and 2 of the 50 ones, now we're up to 250, which is what, 5,000 Rand? Is that not bad for a day's collection? I think 5,000 rupees is not a lot, but 5,000 Rand would be $250, correct? So that would make it okay. I'd sell smaller ones, but I went to Reservoir Hills where people had money because my mission was to make some good contacts and to sell the most books to a few people. If I'm going to spend the time, instead of selling one book, sell the big set or the medium set. And from that, I collected a good amount. And I asked a few people gave me contributions to help towards the book debt. And I was staying in La Mercy where I could hide from security police. So I had programs arranged in Port Elizabeth, Grahamstown, and East London. Of course, Grahamstown came first. And in East London, I sold books to sets to every single Indian business there and did a program and sold a bunch more and incense there. And then I went to Port Elizabeth and sold a bunch there. I spent more days there, so the total was bigger. But the couple days I spent in East London, but there was only a few Indian businesses, so but I more or less saturated after a couple days. And so in Port Elizabeth, we went to Andre DeWitt's house, who was originally written letters to Prabhupada in the late 60s, way back. And I met one boy, Greg Castell, there, who became Gokulendra. Gokulendra's in the hospital near Cape Town now. When I come to Cape Town on the 9th of December, hopefully I can go to see him because he may be in the last stages of his life. But I had this whole group of people chanting and listening to classes. I would do books in the day, and then I would go to these European origin people. And then he was going back to Grahamstown. So I took him back to Grahamstown with me because he was in university there. And he started chanting japa and became a devotee. But when I went back to Durban, I was staying in La Mercy, which was way out in nowhere. It's all built up now, but back then there was nobody there. So the next day, these 2 cars come up the driveway. And I thought, this is strange. No one ever comes out here. So they said, we hear that you're preaching to different races, which is illegal. And we want to take your passport and take you to the special branch. They said they're a special branch, but they didn't treat me like I was special. So what I did is we went into Durban to get my passport, and I took the visa out of the passport. It was on a separate piece of paper on the Friday, and they said, where's your visa? I said, oh, it's coming with my things from Johannesburg on Monday, because I knew I needed to buy myself enough time to pay off the book debt and get Pushta Krishna there, because Prabhupada was concerned that I was alone. First he asked Brahmananda to come, and Brahmananda drove all the way from Nairobi, stopping to do Sankirtan Safari on the way. But at the border they wouldn't let him in because he had African devotees. And then he asked Durdarshan to come, and Durdarshan means hard to see or hard to find, so he left right away. And then Prabhupada had asked Pushta Krishna Swami to come. So I told them my things were coming on Monday. They said, we'll be back on Monday. So I knew I bought myself 3 days. So I paid for the books because I made a bunch of money selling books in East London, Port Elizabeth. I was able to pay for all the books and still have $5,000 worth that were paid for. And I asked my mother to arrange a ticket for me because I knew if I went in on Monday, if I already had a ticket to leave for Tuesday, they might not throw me in a jail. But if I have nothing, I have nothing to lose. So I got that, and I called Brahmananda in Nairobi and Karunja in Los Angeles, And Pushta Krishna, I told him it's Friday, you have to be here tomorrow. He came with his assistant the next day. When I went in on Monday, they took me in front of the colonel of security police, and he said, I hear you don't even eat meat. Like this was the biggest sin they'd ever heard of. And they said, maybe we should force you to eat meat. I said, I hold an American passport, and that's the last country that supports you. Do you really want to risk that by mistreating its citizens? So they said they telexed the capital, and it took many hours to decide whether I was going to jail or going on a plane. And finally they said, okay, they've decided that you leave tomorrow. We're stamping your ticket, and we're putting you on a plane. And if you don't go, you'll be arrested, and your ticket will be invalid. The ticket is only good for June 2nd, 1973. So that was my exit to the country. So when people ask what it was like when Prabhupada came, I wasn't allowed to be here. But I did plant the seed, and I made many contacts. The people like Trumpak Soni and the Kara family, and J.T. Bula was promoting the idea of starting something in Chatsworth. So all those original people who helped to get the visa for Prabhupada were people that I had met and cultured. And it was difficult to get the visa because South Africa didn't allow Indians in, and India did not allow its citizens to go to South Africa. So you had to get variances from both governments. And I wasn't able to be here when Prabhupada came, but I was here in spirit, just like when Prabhupada gave the Nectar of Devotion talks in 72 in Vrindavan. I didn't get to be there, but Prabhupada did mention on the first tape, 33 minutes in, that I was in South Africa preaching as he sent a newspaper article. So that's a short version of what happened during the time I was here. And people always ask me if I know these devotees and those devotees, but I didn't know anyone because I was here all alone. All those people came later. And anyway, I knew that when the Swami had left me there alone, I knew I had somehow had to stay long enough to bring other people and to pay off this debt. Because if the Swami left and then I left and there was a big book debt, nobody's going to want to go to South Africa to take over. And because Prabhupada was concerned that I was there alone, it created an urgency to bring other people. So if I left, that urgency would be gone, and people wouldn't want to come after they heard the stories about what went on with thieves and government here. And so I had to stay long enough to do that, and I did that for all the people who were going to become devotees. I didn't know who they were, but I knew that if I didn't stay through the difficulty, and I didn't risk my life and imprisonment to stay there, there probably wouldn't be in ISKCON South Africa. So I did stay long enough to create the original contacts, who again set things up to bring Prabhupada here, and who brought more people, and the other devotees have continued since then. Thank you, Hare Krishna.